Today we're going to look at slope again, otherwise known as rate of change. We're going to review. There are 4 types of slope. The first one is positive. Positive slopes go up and to the right. As you read left to right, the line is going up. Negative slopes slope down and to the right. Okay, 0 slopes are horizontal lines. And finally, undefined slopes are vertical lines. We're going to focus today on the formulas. I am going to tell you now that anytime you have a fraction that has a 0 in the numerator, let's write this with a pen, a 0 in the numerator, and it doesn't matter whatever else is down here. I'm going to put the letter B for now, just to put something. So anytime you have a 0 in the numerator, you will end up with a horizontal line. Whenever you end up with a 0 in the denominator, so any number over top of 0 in the denominator, you will end up with an undefined line. If you take your calculator and you take any number and you try to divide it by 0, you will notice right away that you get an error message. Sometimes it'll say undefined, sometimes it'll say error. So the way that we find slope using the formula is we subtract the y coordinates on the top of our fraction and our x coordinates on the bottom of our fraction. Okay, it's very important that we label our points and we go in order. So whichever point I start with the y, I have to start with the x. And we're going to do some practice ones so you'll see. The other way is by counting the rise over the run. Pick 2 good points. I first decide, is my line positive or negative? And then I count the rise over the run, and I write that as a fraction. Lastly, we can look at a table. We can find the change in y. So I start with the y's. From 11 down to 8, we're subtracting 3. From 8 down to 5, we're subtracting 3. So my change in y is negative 3. My change in x, I'm going from negative 3 to negative 1. I'm going up 2. Negative 1 to positive 1, up 2. So I end up with negative 3 over 2, which I leave as negative 3 over 2. Now we're actually going to try. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label x1, y1. And my second ordered pair is x2, y2. Then I'm going to write m equals. I'm going to start with my y2. I'm going to write negative 7 minus y1 is positive 4. And on the bottom, I'm going to go back to the x coordinate, which is, or the y coordinate in the second ordered pair, which is 8. And I'm going to be subtracting negative 3. Okay, now I'm going to simplify this. Negative 7 minus 4 is negative 11. So that's my numerator. Then I notice that I have a double negative here. Don't forget, a double negative is a positive. So when I do that, I end up with positive 11, 8 plus 3. Now I can simplify this whole thing to negative 1. So my final slope is negative 1. Okay, on the next one, I'm going to find 2 good ordered pairs. It's a little bit more challenging. I'm actually going to use where it crosses the x-axis and where it crosses the y-axis. So I'm using the 6 on the x-axis, and I'm going to use the 2 on the y-axis. I'm going to draw myself a right triangle, and I'm going to do my rise over my run. So I'm going to start first off by noticing that this slope, it's going in a downward line. The line is going in a downward direction. So right away, I'm going to give it a negative sign. Then I'm going to count my rise. 1, 2. And I'm going to count my run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to end up with negative 2 over 6, which I can simplify to negative 1/3. Right? And then lastly, let's look at this table. I'm going to look at my change in y first. So I'm going from negative 7 to negative 9, which means I'm going down 2. And if I look at, just to make sure, from negative 9 to negative 11, it's also down 2. Then I'm going to go over and look at my x's. 8 down to 6 is down 2. And also, if I go from 6 to 4, I'm going down 2. So I'm going to write m equals, the change in y is negative 2. My change in x is negative 2. Negative 2 over negative 2 can be simplified to positive 1. If you're not sure, use your calculator. You should be able to know a negative over negative is a positive, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now let's look at, now here on this page are some practice problems. I'm going to again remind you, when you look at the first one, I would label x1, y1. Over here, I would label x2, y2. It sometimes helps. I would do that for problems 1, 2, and 3. And then I would write my m equals and start my subtraction problems. Okay, if you notice problem number 4 and number 5, they give us the dots. So these are the ones I would use the rise and the run, and I would count. The tables, again, don't forget to find the difference in the y's over the difference in the x's. And number 8's a little bit of a challenge, but we'll go over it. Good luck.